Instead of Captain America Civil War, we would get Avengers Under Siege. This film would follow the post-credit scenes of Captain America Winter Soldier and Avengers Age of Ultron, and feature Helmut Zemo, grandson of Heinrich Zemo, assembling the Masters of Evil to get revenge on the Avengers, specifically Captain America, who of course killed his grandfather. The lineup includes Justin Hammer as the Titanium Man, Jake's Executioner, Abomination, Taskmaster, Swordsman, Whirlwind, an old enemy of Hank Bojack Van Dyne, and the Black Knight. Eventually, come the third act, Swordsman and Black Knight turn on the Masters and join up with the Avengers. However, the climax plays out very similarly to the Civil War, with Zemo revealing to Tony that Bucky was the one who killed his parents, causing him to fight Steve and Bucky. By the end of the movie, the Avengers disassemble, Thor goes back to Asgard, Hulk goes into space, and the Masters are either imprisoned or they escape. Doctor Strange and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 could probably just be the exact same movies. Spider-Man Homecoming probably have to have some changes though. Peter didn't really appear in Under Siege because, well, frankly, I couldn't come up with a good character to be his counterpart in the Masters of Evil. So he would just debut here. And because of this, I feel like Iron Man would have a bit smaller role since he and Peter haven't formally met yet. Instead, Peter wears the homemade suit for the entire duration of the movie, and by the end of the movie, after he defeats Vulture, Tony approaches him, telling him how impressed he is by his, defeating of the Vulture, and grants him the Stark suit. Thor Ragnarok would be the fourth and final fourth film of the Infinity Saga. We'll also have some elements of Thor Love and Thunder, including Gore the God Butcher taking the place of Scourge Executioner, and Jane, who has not broken up before, having a large role in the film, by the third act becoming the Mighty Thor, as she manages to reassemble Mjolnir, which was destroyed by Hela early in the film, and fights alongside Thor, Hulk, Loki, and all the other characters. Captain America Serpent Society would follow a similar plot to Captain America Brave New World in the Black Alliance video, what if Marvel never sold the rights to their characters. The film basically follows the plot of Steve, Natasha, Bucky, and Sam going up against the Serpent Society, while slowly starting to become public enemy number one in the eyes of the government. By the end of the movie, after Cap gets his Infinity War Nomad look, he and the rest of the Team Cap end up hiding out in Wakanda as they are no longer welcomed in America. However, Steve will soon be forced to defend Earth once more, and of course, Infinity War follows basically the exact same plot, except Thor gets an even larger focus. We'd still keep most of the Asgardians, including Loki and Heimdall, getting massacred at the beginning of the film, and Thor seeking out revenge on Thanos, eventually leading to him entering Wakanda alongside Rocket and Groot after he gets Stormbreaker. Yada yada yada, he doesn't go for the head. However, this film ends on a bit of a different note, actually a bit of a bleaker note, honestly. After Thanos snaps his fingers and Thor watches all the people who get dusted, get dusted, in absolute rage, Thor proceeds to, go for the head. One movie earlier, might I add. However, ultimately, this does nothing. It just leaves Thor feeling more empty inside. So yeah, Thanos dies in this version, but, of course, he'll come back. Before we get to the big conclusion of this saga, we get, of course, two in-between movies. There's Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is basically the exact same, and then, instead of Captain Marvel, we would get a Loki solo film. Basically, the two seasons of the Loki TV show just condensed into one movie. Obviously, the base point would have to be a little different, since the time heist hasn't happened yet. So let's just say that Loki ends up in like the TVA's dimension after his death. Like it's, I don't know, maybe the TVA's location is like purgatory or something. I don't know. But yeah, this one basically serves as both a solo film for Loki and a bit of a setup for the next saga since we start getting teasers for Kang in the multiverse. By the end of the movie, Loki becomes the god of stories, and in the post credit scene, we see him returning to Earth, and well, you know exactly why. Avengers Endgame. This film would have some massive changes, but the overall structure would be the same. Instead of Captain Marvel being the one to save Tony and Nebula in this version, it would be Loki who returns them to Earth. And we still get the whole 5-year time jump, and in that time we discover that Loki has been searching for his brother. Eventually he finds Thor, who has Michelle was herself. I don't mean as in fat Thor as much as I actually like him, but in this version, Thor is so overcome by the guilt and his feelings of inadequacy because he failed to truly avenge his people by killing Thanos. So he has more or less stopped using any of his hammers and he's trying to live a normal human life as Donald Blake. However, once he reunites with his brother, he starts to slowly but surely return to his former self. Though he still does not pick up one of his hammers until after the whole pep talk he gets from his mom. Instead of Hulk being the one to snap his fingers and bring everyone back, it's Thor, kind of inspired by this video by this channel called Thor Talk, which basically said that Thor and Hulk's role should have been swapped in Endgame. Now, this won't kill Thor because, out of the three members of like the core Infinity Saga trio, Thor is like the one member who can realistically survive this kind of maneuver. However, much like what happens in the comics, his arm gets pretty screwed up, and later during a fight with Thanos, of course, is from the past, the Mad Titan straight up rips his arm clean off, putting him out of commission for now. Ultimately, Tony is still the one to make the big sacrifice play because I imagine he'd be like the secondary main character, while Cap would kind of be like the actual Infinity Saga, being kind of the third member who gets an arc, but really doesn't get much focus as the other two. So in this version, Cap doesn't go back in time and give his title to Sam. He'll stick around much longer in this version. Spider-Man Far From Home, to end things off, is, well, basically the exact same movie.